leaders, we often talk about resilience, mindfulness, and where to find help in times of need. But we spend a lot less time talking about how we're actually feeling. Why do you think it's so hard to do that?
I'll jump right on that one. I think it's a lot of how I was brought up, right? My age, like when I was brought up, you didn't talk, you didn't show any cracks, right? If you showed a crack, it was bad, right? Then that was just how, and I'm a grad, I was at St. George's, right? Like this was my school. And when I grew up, you had to stay tough. Otherwise, especially in those years where, you wanted to be fit, you wanted to fit in, right? And that was really the biggest thing going to school every day. And I'm so close with a lot of St. George's guys, but in that time, you're insecure, you're unsure. Now, I have young children and I'm loving the world in which we are because I want them to be able to speak to me about anything or their friends or be who they want to be, right? And that's what I love about our school, being the best version of you, whatever that is. Don't be a version of someone else. Be your version. So I think the hardest thing within that question for me was having that ingrained in me of this is who you're supposed to be, especially as a male in the environment I grew up in, to now showing vulnerability and being open to talk. And I think it's so important. I think it's a great thing.
I can think of 2 instances this week and last week when I had one advisee and one student just reach out and say, Madame, I'm having some trouble and challenging to get the homework done and, stress here, projects, assignments. And it was just nicely crafted portal message. And, just me reaching out to them and like, let's talk after class, let's talk after this. And just the fact that they felt open enough and honest enough to reach out and say, hey, I'm having some difficulty. In the grand scheme of things, chapter 5 questions, not going to make or break Francais anything, right? But I love that some, not all, some are coming, but that they feel that they can talk about those things.
I think one of the major challenges around mental health, as the stigma around it, is when we have a physical health issue, we can see it and there's levels of care that would happen. So if I have a sprained ankle, there's a wrap around it. But then if I break my ankle, then there's a cast. And then if it's a really bad break, I go in for surgery. And so we see these tiered ways of getting support for that physical health. And for mental health, though, I think one of the challenges that all of the mental health challenges we have all goes down to, okay, so you're going to go talk to someone about it. We need to talk. And so it's hard I think when the idea of saying, oh, I go and see a therapist, there's no range here for someone to assess, wait, is that a therapist because you have you stubbed your toe, or is that a therapist because you need major surgery? Where is it on this spectrum? And I think that makes it really challenging for people to share and say, I have a therapist, I go and see a therapist, I talk to somebody.
Every conversation starts with how you're doing. And you're right, Ruth, if you have your arm in a cast, if you have, whatever, that's kind of how I'm doing. But so the how are you doing, I think part of the reluctance maybe to talk about it is, what are you going to do about it? If I do, and I think often what we're absent, I think in those conversations is, what's the answer back if someone says I'm really struggling, and I think, or it's, you kind of got me in a really low day today, and I think where we can offer is even the look. Do you want me to listen, or do you want me to talk if you talk to me? Or I think the how are you and things are fine, let's just move on, partly comes from you're probably not going to be able to help anyway. So let me just, and I'm probably avoiding how I am because when struggling, we often avoid. So that may be part of it too.
I like that. We're talking about this now, right? We never would have talked about these things 20 years ago. And I think, a lot of credit goes to guys like Michael Landsberg from TSN and Mike Babcock. And these are guys who are, in the public eye, who've come forward and talked about their own mental health struggles and are talking about it. And I think that's really important, that it sort of normalizes things and reduces the stigma. And so, it allows us to kind of open up to our friends or open up to our colleagues or to seek help, because it's like, wait, it's a thing. Like, it's not something that's buried. It's a thing.